Okay, hi folks. So welcome back. We are again having a conversation with professors, and especially during the pandemic, we're all online. One of the things that seems to be increasingly happening is to email professors with different things during the course of this particular semester. And I'm really fortunate to be joined by my colleagues that you see here, Dr. Alistair Diaz in human biology, Dr. Maria Papaconstantinou in human biology, and Dr. Sian Patterson in biochemistry in the Faculty of Medicine. So thank you for joining us. Today's topic is emails. So I wanted to ask first, during the pandemic, are you experiencing like an increase in the number of emails that you've been receiving from students?
Okay, I'll start. Yeah, definitely. We've had quite a few come in. I find my mornings are responding to emails that have come through overnight, trying to set boundaries on those kinds of things. So I've definitely seen an increase from all aspects, administration, students, everybody throughout the course for sure.
Yeah, myself I would say the same thing. I've gotten tons of emails regarding administrative issues, technical difficulties, specifically with the virtual sort of delivery. Lots of emails on marking feedback, interaction with TAs. I just think without having the office, like the in-person office hour or the chance to see some of these students in class, you're just getting bombarded with a lot of emails because that's sort of their first way of communicating. So I've certainly noticed it too.
Sure, I will reiterate what my colleagues have said as well. I've noticed an increase in emails compared to previous years. And again, because we don't have that in-person component, students cannot, approach us before class, during the break, after class to ask, or even during in-person office hours to ask us these questions. So I've definitely noticed a spike in emails, either administrative related or lecture content related.
I think the one aspect of emails that makes it a bit of a challenge is that students often don't have an idea or a sense as to what the expectation is when they're writing to you as a professor, whether it's to ask you a question or ask you for additional office hours or making different types of requests. And I'm wondering if I could share my screen with you, and then we can take a quick look at some of the suggested templates that are provided by different institutions. And maybe I could get your input into what is being put on there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which is offered sort of as a template for students who are writing to their professors. And if you can comment on what you like or dislike about maybe the email template that's provided up here at the top.
Okay, I can start. I think I like the email because they have, so the student is asking for a meeting because they cannot make their scheduled office hours, and they've actually proposed alternative times. And I actually like that because normally, a student might say, I can't come to your regular office hours. And then you would have to reply, okay, when are you available? And then they would say, I'm available at that time. And then, so to decrease the number of emails, I actually like that. And I've actually, I inform my students as well. If you cannot meet my office hours, please send me an email and include your availability. So available dates and times, and we will find something that's mutually agreeable. And that cuts down on the number of emails that are sent, back and forth.
Well, that's a really great point. And I think that that whole issue of like email tagging and going that back and forth is time consuming for both the student and the professor. So that's an excellent point. Dr. Patterson, do you have anything that you particularly like about this email, or is there anything that isn't so great about this email?
I really like that it's short and to the point, and it's getting at what they're actually looking for. They've introduced what course they're in. For me, I would prefer that they actually include that in the subject line. There's no sort of guidelines provided here of what to put in the subject line, but many of us teach multiple courses, so it's great if it just said, Math 299 dash discuss some problems or meet in another meeting. That would be really helpful. In order to sort of cut down on what's in the body of the email. so that we can just glance at the subject heading and know exactly what that student's looking for.
Oh, again, another really great point. That subject line is actually really important. I think most profs kind of keep an eye out for that. So great point there as well, being really specific to the point and keeping it short. And Dr. Diaz, is there anything in particular that you like about this email or anything that stands out for you?
Yeah, just looking at the two. Well, the first one, I think I really like the fact that, if you contrast it to the second one, they actually use the professor's, name or last name, as opposed to just hi professor. I've also gotten, emails in the past where it just says hi prof. And sometimes I'm tempted to answer hi student. But I really think, putting the name or the in the email, I think is really important to establish that first connection. I also like the fact that the first email is very specific about what times they're available. I certainly think that saves time in going back and forth and figuring out a mutual agreeable time to meet. I will say, I think the second question does get pretty specific in terms of what they're asking. And in some cases, it's almost asking, how to do a particular question. And I think there's a fine balance with trying to get the answer out of your prof versus guide me in trying to find the answer. And so I think that's something students can give a bit of thought to, as to pose, to kind of demonstrate that they are still trying to be an independent thinker and figure out the problem. They just need sort of a path to follow along. And so I think that's something a student should keep in mind, as it does leave a bit of an impression on your professor in terms of, the types of questions you are asking.
Okay, some great points there as well. Just going to that lower email template at the bottom, do you have any thoughts on that, Dr. Patterson?
Well, we've talked a bit about, so what you're sort of including in the email, and it's really great if the students ahead of time, before even composing an email, are looking at the other resources that are available in the course. So whether it be a discussion board or whether these questions are regarding sort of administration issues, regarding the syllabus, making sure that they're sort of doing that back work to check and make sure that there isn't a better way or a different forum or resource to use first before emailing us directly for help with whatever questions they might have.
Okay, again, great points. And Dr. Papaconstantinou, anything that stands out particularly for you in that second email?
So the student is asking a lot of questions. As Dr. Diaz says, they refer to them as hi professor. So that's one point. They don't actually, there's no, I guess, salutation in the end. So it's just Jill, not thank you, Jill, or sincerely Jill, or best regards, Jill. It's just Jill. So it's I think best practice to end off with some type of salutation. I also noticed for at least the first problem, they're saying, are we supposed to assume this, the method recommended in the hint? So it looks like they're just trying to get the answer rather than, I guess, help that would help them get the answer. So sometimes, if there's a particular assignment and the student is tasked to try to figure it out and propose something, and a hint is given, that hint would be, I think, enough. And an additional email like this one may not be, I guess, not necessary, but at the same time, the prof may not be able to answer that question simply because they might be giving away the answer. So it's one thing digging for information that would allow you to solve the question versus trying to clarify something. So it all depends on the type of question. And many of these questions are best placed on the discussion board as well. Because if these are common questions that students have, then you can kill two birds with one stone, and your answer could, a question that many students have can be addressed once rather than repetitively.
Okay, so some great insights there as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think also you had mentioned that point, Dr. Papaconstantinou, about ending with sort of a nice sort of professional sign-off. Is that important in these emails to be professional throughout the body of the email? Is that something that you look for? Is that something that stands out? And maybe I can start with Dr. Diaz and kind of work around on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. I think an email, especially a first email, can leave a really significant first impression on your professor. And so I really look for well-crafted emails where, you know, they're sincere, polite, and really are very sort of make you feel that the student understands that your time is important, your time is precious, and they also value your knowledge. And so I've really sort of looked when I get an email from a student, if it is crafted very professionally, I always actually let the student know that, you know, this is a very well-crafted email, it's well written, and these are sort of skills that can really help you out with your future networking as well. So what I always say to the student is, you know, these are things or pointers and tips that you could share with your peers and your friends who are also emailing profs, and sort of, you know, perpetuate that sort of type of email among the class. So I think it is really important. Like I said, it's an important first impression, and very often, you know, when, you know, if a student comes back and asks me, for instance, like a reference letter, if I remember certain emails and how they're crafted, that's also something where, you know, I can comment on that in their reference letter in terms of their ability to communicate. So that's something students can keep in mind as well, because, you know, in a lot of cases, a student may come back to you for a reference letter.
Well, that's like really amazing insight. And also, I've never heard of anyone giving feedback on an email before. So that's also like pretty awesome in and of itself. Dr. Patterson, how important is professionalism in an email address to you?
I think very important. And, you know, as Dr. Diaz mentioned, you know, these are skills that they're developing. You know, in our courses, it's not just about the content, it's about these types of skills that are going to be real important for them going forward in their future careers. So I think it is definitely something that they should be considering. Things like, you know, when you take the time to edit your emails and reread them, you know, making sure you have the right course code and that your questions are clear, or the things that you're looking for clarification are very clearly illustrated in the email, that's definitely a big plus and a big positive. And it allows us to get to know our students, you know, especially now that we're online the majority of the time, we don't have those face-to-face connections. So for them to take the time to get to know us and to address us appropriately and allow us to get to know them as students, that's definitely a big plus and a skill that they're going to need going forward.
Great points as well. And Dr. Papaconstantinou, any insights into professionalism? How important is that? And any suggestions about professionalism in emails that are being addressed to different profs?
Right. I think it's extremely important. These are transferable skills, and I think proper email etiquette should be practiced not just by the professors but the students as well. It shows, you know, it's common courtesy and respectful to address the individual that you're sending the email to, and to also sign off properly. You can think about it in the workplace. Would you not address your boss? You know, you would not thank your boss or say sincerely or what have you. You probably would. You should, at least. So I think it's really important. And, you know, as Dr. Diaz said, a carefully crafted email is important. I have actually commented on emails or given feedback to students as well, especially if they haven't addressed me properly. Sometimes I do it a little bit more subtly. So if the student does not address me at the beginning, but I will always say, hi, so-and-so. So I've never, even if they don't address me, if they just say hello, I will say hi, whoever, you know, and whoever the person is who's sent me this email, and I will always sign off. So I do it sometimes very subtly, hoping that they will pick up on this when if they respond or if they send me another email. Sometimes they don't. So I have given feedback to students. So yes, a well-crafted email is very important. And in terms of reference letters, it's not only extremely important, but you do remember, you know, the students who have, you know, behaved in a professional manner, and it is to their benefit in the future, at least.
Yeah, actually, could I expand on my answer just a little bit? I was just thinking things through, and, you know, a lot of times when a student does email you, in some cases it can be about a problem or an issue, you know, marking, you know, a mistake in how you posted something, or something is missing that you were supposed to post, or maybe you didn't post something on time. And, you know, I get emails sometimes which sometimes sound a little bit passive aggressive, sometimes can be kind of sarcastic. And you can kind of pick up on those in the emails. And I think students just need to keep in mind that professors sometimes, miss things. Sometimes we can make a mistake, and addressing them or trying to figure out if there's a solution, that there's a better way to communicate that. And just think about your email before you hit send is something that is really important to do, especially if there's an issue.
Just on the flip side of that, I really love getting emails where students are just blown away by what they're learning in the course. Like, it might not even include a question, but it might just be like, wow, I didn't realize that, and this is super interesting. Those types of emails really touch base and touch home with you, and you remember those ones as well.
Oh,
And
definitely. Totally agree.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. I also love getting emails from students who kind of go beyond the course, where you might have been discussing a topic at one point, and then all of a sudden there's this new paper that was published or a new article that was published, and they'll say, hi, Dr. P, I came across this really interesting article. It reminded me or made me think of your lecture on this. I love those types of emails too, because they're taking the material and again, they're applying it to everyday life, or ideas or information that they have gathered from other sources outside of the course. And I love those types of emails as well. It makes me think that I've done my job.
So in other words, sometimes student emails can also be like really encouraging and also make profs feel like they're doing a great job, which I think,
Totally.
yeah.
Total thumbs up to those.
Yeah.
We need more of those.
Yeah.
I think going back, I know that all of you take great care and are very respectful in replying to students, and that just as you had indicated earlier, that being professional is important in emails coming to you, but I know that all of you also take a lot of time and effort in being professional in your responses back to the students. Sometimes it gets a little bit challenging, especially at this time of year. So I'm wondering, now that we're sort of halfway through the semester, how much of a challenge is it in terms of seeing what's going to happen in terms of the rest of the semester and toward the end of the course? Should students expect that it's going to take a little bit longer, maybe replying back to emails?
Well, I can go first there. Yeah, I certainly think, first, I think you do also need to make them aware that, that the amount of emails you're receiving is dramatically increased compared to what it normally is. And by making them aware, you can certainly say and let them know that, it may take more time than usual for me to reply. And, if it's something easy, I'm able to get back to a student in, an hour or two. But sometimes some of the emails can be a lot more detailed, or a lot more time needs to be invested in the answer. And so in those cases, sometimes it could take 4 or 5 days, and sometimes it could take a week, depending on what the professor's workload is for that particular moment. And, just like students get busy during midterm time, for instance, we also get very busy, marking on the other end of things. So it's just having awareness about the professor's current situation and how many emails they're receiving, and making sure you communicate with the class from the very beginning, I think is important to establish.
Yeah, I will add on that and say that patience is a virtue, but it should be practiced on both ends. So I like to be very patient with my students, but I hope on the flip side that they're patient with me, especially during the busier times of the term, like now. So sometimes it might take a little longer for us to respond to emails, but it doesn't mean that we haven't read them or we haven't seen them. It just if you wake up in the morning and you get 20 emails, sometimes you might only be able to respond to a few before you have to start a class, or have do complete something else that you have to do before you reply to the emails. I actually like to I was taught to follow the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated, and I like to apply that not just into my everyday life, but to my profession as well, and to my interactions with students. So I hope that students will, treat us the way that they want to be treated, and I will do the same. So I like to reciprocate in that way.
Yeah, and I think we're all trying to set boundaries. We'd love to be able to get back to you in an hour or two, or even by the end of the day, but having kind of a minimum expectation of 24 hours, I would probably say is sort of reasonable. You know, for most of the emails, if I can't get back to them immediately, I'll tell them, you know, give me a couple days to look at this, and then I'll get back to you. And then, you know, if you don't hear back within, you know, maybe after 2 days worth, then it might warrant sending a follow-up email. But yeah, we're all trying to get back to you, and we're trying to do it, you know, within sort of normal working hours. I think the expectation of getting responses at night, or if you're in different time zones, it's a little bit harder, especially now. But, you know, we are trying to get back, but also setting boundaries regarding when we're replying. It can be tough.
Okay, so I think the bottom line is, as Dr. Papaconstantinou had mentioned, just keep in mind that professors are also human, that we are all kind of in the middle of a pandemic, that you want to be treating your professors the same way that they want to be treating you, which is with mutual respect. And I hope that this has been an interesting and informative sort of session for all of you. Good luck in the rest of your semester, and I'm going to sign off.
All right.
See you
Best
guys.
of luck, everybody.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Take care.